Today we will pick up where we left off last year. So I think we came to the end of this section on karma last year. And so today we'll study the the section called the process of death and rebirth. First, the author mentions the four causes of death. And these four causes are: 1, the expiration of the lifespan, and 2, the expiration of the productive karmic force, and 3, the simultaneous expiration of lifespan and the productive karmic force, and 4, the intervention of a destructive karma. So these are the four causes of death. These four causes of death are explained with the simile of an oil lamp. So, imagine or visualize an oil lamp burning. So it will be burning so long as there is the wick, there is oil, and there is no gust of wind, or there is no deliberate extinguishing by a person. But when the wick is used up, the flame will go out. Or when the oil is used up, the flame will go out. And when both are used up, again, the flame will go out. And even though there is oil, there is wick, but when there is a gust of wind or somebody extinguishes it, then the flame will go out. So in the same way, the expiration of lifespan is like the expiration of the wick, and expiration of the productive karmic forces like expiration of the oil, and the expiration of both is again like the expiration of both. And the last one, the flame going out because of the gust of wind or somebody deliberately extinguishes, is like a destructive karma. So there are these four kinds of death. And death in Buddhism is defined as the interruption of life faculty included in the limits of one becoming or one existence. So jivitendriya or life faculty is important. And when it expires, a person is said to die. So when a person dies, both mental faculty and physical faculty disappear. So with the cessation of the mental and physical life faculty, one is said to die. So that is just the interruption or cutting off of that life faculty. Now the first kind of death, which comes through the expiration of lifespan. Now, as you know, there are some realms that have fixed lifespan, like Chatu Maharajika, Tawatingsa, and so on. But for human beings, there is no fixed lifespan, but nowadays it is supposed, the lifespan of human beings is supposed to be about 100 years. So if a person dies, say, when he reaches 100 years, although his karmic force is still unexhausted, then he may be said to die through the expiration of lifespan. His past karma may have potential to give him a longer life, but since he was born at a time when human beings live only 100 years and he dies at the age of 100 years, then he is said to die through the expiration of lifespan. And for celestial beings and so on, their lifespan is longer than that of human beings. And when they die at the end of their lifespan, say for example for Chatu Maharajikas, if they die at the end of 500 celestial years, then they are said to die through the expiration of lifespan. And then in the manual there is a saying, if the productive karma is still not exhausted when death takes place through reaching the maximum age, the karmic force can generate another rebirth on the same plane or on some higher plane, as in the case of the Devas. Don't know where he took this from. So I have no way of saying whether it is right or wrong. Maybe he took it from the commentary of Lady Seattle. I don't have that book, and so I cannot say whether it is true or not. But according to my understanding, a karma can give only one patisandhi. One karma can give only one patisandhi. So even though it is not exhausted, I don't think it can give another patisandhi result. Okay, the second one is the expiration of the productive karmic force. Now this is death before the end of a normal given lifespan. For example, human beings are said to, or supposed to live 100 years now. If a person dies before 100 years, then he is said to die of the expiration of productive karmic force. So his karma in the past cannot help him to live up to 100 years. So he dies before he reaches 100 years. So in that case, he is said to die from expiration of the productive karmic force. So when a person dies through productive karmic force, his lifespan may not be exhausted, and also there are other favorable conditions for the prolongation of life. Although there are these conditions, and although lifespan is not exhausted, his karmic force is exhausted, and so he dies before he reaches the end of the lifespan. So that is the expiration and death through the expiration of the productive karmic force. When both the lifespan and karmic force simultaneously come to an end, this is death by the expiration of both. That means a human being now dies at the age of 100, then he is said to die through expiration of both lifespan and his karmic force. And the fourth kind of death is through a destructive karma. A destructive karma can be the past karma or done in the present life. Destructive karma intervenes when, say, a person is killed by his own attempt or by attempt of others, or if he is killed by some disease, And also, in the case of some persons who committed a very heinous offense against those who are very virtuous, then their karmic force cannot maintain their life or cannot prolong their life up to the end of the lifespan or up to the end of the karmic force. And so their life is cut off, say, before they reach to their normal end. And so that kind of death is called death through the intervention of a destructive karma. So the death through a destructive karma can be caused by the karma in the past. I think you have met, you still remember the destructive karma when you study the 4 sets of 4 kinds of karmas. So when a person dies through a destructive karma, that destructive karma can be that can belong to the past, or it can be in this life. You know, there is a story of a king who cuts the hands and feet of a hermit who was a bodhisattva. Bodhisattva in that life was called Khantiwadi because he practiced forbearance, or he practiced patience. So the king was displeased with him, and so the king wanted to test him whether he had real patience, and so he ordered the hermit's hands to be cut off and then his legs to be cut off. But although these were cut off, he did not get angry. But this crime, this sin was so grave that the king was swallowed by the earth. So the king's cutting the hands and feet, the legs of the hermit was so grave, so bad that it interferes or it destroys the force of karma, force of his past karma, and so that force cannot maintain his life any longer, and so he was swallowed by the earth and died and born in Avijji hell. So that kind of death is called death through destructive karma. So there are many kinds of death through destructive karmas nowadays, dying in an accident or committing suicide, and the other natural calamities as well. So there are these 4 kinds of death taught in Buddhism, and among them the first 3 are called Kala Marana, timely death. That means a person dies when it is time for him to die. But the last one is called Akala Marana, untimely death. He still there is still lifespan, and there is still the force of productive karma, but it is cut off through a destructive karma. So it is called Akala Marana, an untimely death. It is like the flame of an oil lamp going out when there is a gust of wind. So these are the 4 kinds of death. Now the author explains what signs come to the mind of a person at the time of death. Now, in the case of those who are about to die, at the time of death, one of the following presents itself through any of the 6 sense doors. Now, when a person is about to die, then one of the 3 kinds of objects present itself to his mind through any one of the 6 sense doors, through eye, through ear, and so on. And that presentation of the object itself is caused by the force of karma. So it the object appears to the mind of a dying person by the force of karma he did in the past. That karma may be either kusala karma or akusala karma. And the 3 kinds of objects that appears to his mind at that time are 1, karma, and 2, the sign of karma, and 3, the sign of destiny. So any one of these present itself to the mind of a dying person. Karma is that karma is the karma that is productive of rebirth. So the karma here is productive karma that gives patisandhi result in the next existence. And the sign of karma means some objects that are apprehended previously at the time of the performing karma. That means the main object at the time of the performing of that karma, and also something that was instrumental in performing that karma. That means, let us call them secondary objects. So there are 2 kinds of sign of karma. The primary and the secondary, or the main and the secondary. Now, let us say, when the sign of karma is donating a monastery, let us say, then the monastery is the main object, and the furniture or something that are used at the monastery, and also giving alms and robes and so on at the monastery are called instrumental in performing the karma. So there are 2 kinds of sign of karma. And if it is, say, erecting a pagoda, then the pagoda is the main object, and the flowers and others, Buddha statues and so on, they are the secondary objects. So similarly, when it is an akusala act, let's say killing an animal, then the animal is the main object, and the weapons used in killing are called instrumental, or they are secondary objects. So in every sign of karma there can be these 2 kinds, 2 varieties, the main and the secondary. So in the text, that had been apprehended previously at the time of performing the karma refers to the main object, and something that was instrumental in performing the karma refers to the secondary objects. 3 is a sign of destiny, that is a sign of the state to be obtained and to be experienced in the immediately following existence. So immediately following existence is called destiny here. So that the sign of destiny means the sign of that immediately following existence. And there are again two varieties of sign of destiny. The one to be obtained and the one to be experienced. Now that means if a person is going to be reborn as a human being, the sign of destiny to be obtained is the wall of his mother's womb, and the sign to be experienced is his experience in the life of a human being. So if he is going to be reborn in a celestial state, then the celestial realm is the state to be obtained, and the celestial mansions, celestial nymphs, and trees and others are those that are experienced. And if a person is going to be reborn in hell, then the hell is the state to be obtained, and hellfire, and those who do torture to the inhabitants of hell are called the sign to be experienced in that existence or in that hell. So here also a sign of destiny is of two kinds. One is the main, and the other is also secondary. So the main is the existence of the realm where a dying person is to be reborn, and the secondary ones are those that he will experience in that life. So these signs, these three kinds of objects, actually one of these three kinds of objects present itself to the mind of a dying person. Now, in the manual, say guide to paragraph 35, second sentence, it should be stressed that this object presents itself to the jhana process of the dying person, not to the death consciousness itself, though it is important. The death consciousness, the final citta in a lifetime, apprehends the same object grasped by the rebirth consciousness and bhavanga of the existence that is about to end. So these three kinds of objects present themselves to the jhana process and not to the death consciousness. The object of the last jhana process then serves as the object of the rebirth consciousness and bhavanga in the next existence, and becomes in turn the object of death consciousness at the end of that existence. Now, it is important that, because if we do not understand this, we might say that the object of patisandhi, bhavanga, and chuti are all same in all lives. So the karma or sign of karma or sign of destiny in one life will be the object of patisandhi, bhavanga, and chuti in other lives as well, and that is not correct. So here, as you know, in one life, patisandhi, bhavanga, and chuti have the same object, same identical object. Now when we look at the diagram, it will be clearer. So the object presented to is not to the death consciousness, but to the jhana process. In other words, these objects are taken as object by the jhana process and not by chuti cheda, not by death consciousness. Okay, now, so a person who is dying, to the mind of a person who is dying, any one of these objects presents itself. So when they appear to the mind of the dying person, they would appear through any one of the 6 sense doors. And they appear to the mind of the dying person through the force of the karma he did in the past. In the past mean in this life or in the past lives. Okay, now next paragraph. Thereafter, attending to that very object thus presented, the stream of consciousness continually flows, inclining mostly towards that state. Now, thereafter, attending to that very object thus presented, now taking that object as object, taking the karma or sign of karma or sign of destiny as object, the stream of consciousness continually flows, go on and on and on, inclining mostly towards that state. That means inclining mostly towards the state he is going to be reborn in. Now, it says mostly because when people die suddenly, they may not have time to incline to the state. So the word mostly is inserted here. Now, if you kill a fly, say by hitting it, it may not have time, say to incline towards the existence it is going to be reborn in, and there can be no pure continuity of consciousness or corrupted continuity of consciousness at that time, because it is just killed instantly. So for those beings, the inclining towards the state to be born in, and also the mind to be pure or to be corrupted cannot happen. So the word mostly is put here. Now, that stream of consciousness is in accordance with the karma that is to be matured, whether pure or corrupted. So his stream of consciousness will be pure if the kusala karma is to give result, and if his stream of consciousness will be corrupted if akusala karma is to give results. So according to the karma which will give results, his consciousness, his stream of consciousness is pure or corrupted, and in conformity with the state in which one is to be reborn. So when a person is going to be reborn in the human realm, then his mind will be inclined towards that human realm. If he's going to be reborn in a celestial realm, then his mind will be inclined towards celestial realm. It is like your mind inclined towards a place where you are going to. Say you are preparing, packing things up to go to some place. So at that time your mind is inclined towards that place. So in the same way, since the being is about to die, then his mind will be inclined towards that state. Now, attending to that very object thus presented, this is a general statement. For most people, their mind will take the object thus presented. That is, their mind will take the object that is presented, whether it is karma or sign of karma or sign of destiny. But sometimes we can do something to change that presentation of objects. I have repeatedly told you about a man who had been a hunter, and in his old age, his son, who was an arahant, ordained him, and he became a monk. When he was lying on his deathbed, he saw dogs running after him or surrounding him. So at that time he was frightened, and he said aloud, get them away, or something like that. When the son heard this, he knew that the signs of nirya, the signs of hell, had occurred to his father. So he had his novices bring flowers, and then he put the flowers on the terrace of the pagoda, and then he had his father taken to the pagoda, and then told him, now these flowers are for you to offer to the Buddha. So do you offer to the Buddha and get your mind clear, or get your mind settled. So when he offered flowers to the Buddha, those signs changed. Instead of those signs of dogs running after him disappeared, and instead he saw celestial nymphs. So when he saw celestial nymphs, he said to his son, go away. So the son said, why? He said, no, your mothers are coming. So with that mind he died, and he was reborn as a celestial being. So first, the object presented was the sign of destiny of hell. But his son was an arahant, and he knew what to do. So he tried, and he succeeded in changing that sign of destiny from a sign of hell to a sign of celestial realm. So attending to that very object thus presented is a general statement. So in some cases, he may attend to the object produced by his relatives, or say whoever happens to be near him. Or that rebirth productive karma presents itself to a sense door in the way of renewing. Now there are two kinds of presentation of these objects. The first kind of presentation of objects is caused by has to do with some karma he did in the past. Now this second kind of presentation, that rebirth productive karma presents itself to a sense store in the way of renewing, is the karma appears to him as though he were doing it at the time. So renewing means it becomes new again, and he feels as though he were doing that karma at that very moment. That karma may have been done years ago or even lives ago, but that karma which is going to give patisandhi result becomes so powerful that in his mind he feels that he is doing that karma again. So in the note it is said that the karma presenting itself does not appear as a memory image of something that was previously done, but it appears to the minder as if it were being done at that very moment. So he feels as though he were doing that karma again at that very moment. So in that case, it can be, it is a karma which he experiences again at that time. So therefore, the presentation of the objects is two kinds. The first is just he remembers some his karma, or a sign of karma and sign of destiny appears to him. And the second one is he feels as though he were doing that karma at that moment. Now, death and rebirth linking. Now, up to this passage, the person has not yet died. The person has not yet reached the last thought process. So, to one who is on the verge of death, either at the end of a cognitive process, that means viticita, or at the dissolution of the life continuum, the death consciousness, the consummation of the present life arises and ceases in the way of death. So this is how death occurs. To one who is on the verge of death, who is near his death, either at the end of a cognitive process, that means either at the end of jhana or tadaramana, death consciousness will arise. Or at the dissolution of life continuum, that means or after bhavanga. So you can find out at least there can be 4 kinds of death thought processes. Actually there are many. But from here, from this statement, you can get 4 kinds of death thought processes. The first one is at the end of jhana, right? Death at the end of jhana. Death at the end of tadaramana. That is second. And the third is death at the end of jhana and bhavanga. And the fourth is death at the end of tadaramana and bhavanga. So there can be 4 kinds of thought process, death thought processes, and there are many more. So death may arise at the end of or after the jhanas or after the tadaramana or after bhavanga. And that death consciousness is the last consciousness in that present life. So it is a consummation of the present life, arises and ceases in the way of death. That means by way of death. So according to this teaching, death means arising and disappearance of the last consciousness in one life. Immediately after that death consciousness has ceased, a rebirth linking consciousness arises and is established in the subsequent existence. Immediately after that, death consciousness has ceased. Here, immediately after that, by these words, immediately after death, the author wanted to prevent the opinion that there is a interim life between two lives. It is called antara bhava in Pali. In Theravāda Buddhism, antara bhava is not accepted. But in other schools of Buddhism, antara bhava is accepted. So here, since the author belongs to Theravāda Buddhism, he wants to prevent that from taken true. So immediately after that death consciousness, rebirth consciousness arises. So there is no time gap between death in one life and rebirth in the next life. Now, there may be practical experiences of a person being in something like an interim life. According to Theravāda Buddhism, that is just one life. That is not an interim period between one life and another. That what is called interim period itself is one life. So, for example, a person dies, and then he may be reborn as a ghost, and he may be living as a ghost for 7 days or whatever, and then he dies as a ghost and reborn as a human being. Now, Theravāda Buddhism takes that life as a ghost is just one existence, one bhava. It is not an interim period between one life and another. But according to the other schools of Buddhism, that period is said to be just an interim period. So they don't call it a life. Although the word bhava is used, say antara bhava. Antara means in between. So life in between. So immediately after, by the words, immediately after that, the author discarded the opinion that there is interim period between one life and another. So according to the teachings of Theravāda Abhidhamma, death is immediately followed by rebirth consciousness. And as soon as rebirth consciousness arises, is in a new life. So, rebirth linking consciousness arises and is established in the subsequent existence. As soon as the rebirth consciousness arises, he is already in a new life. Not that rebirth consciousness arises before the new life, and then when the new life appears, rebirth consciousness has reached its static stage or dissolution stage. So rebirth consciousness arises immediately after the expiration of death consciousness. And that rebirth consciousness, apprehending the object thus obtained, that means taking the object which was taken by the thought moments before death moment, either supported by the heart base. That means if he is reborn in the Kama Vajra or Rupa Vajra realms, then his rebirth consciousness will have the heart base. And if he is to be reborn in an Arupa Vajra realm, then his rebirth consciousness is baseless. It has no base. So either supported by a heart base or baseless. and it is generated by a volitional formation that is enveloped by latent ignorance and rooted in latent craving as is appropriate. Now, I hope you have the picture or diagram in your mind, or you can look up at the diagram. So there is death consciousness and there is rebirth consciousness. Now that rebirth consciousness is generated by a volitional formation. Volitional formation means just karma. So it is generated by karma. That is enveloped by latent ignorance and rooted in latent craving. Now, in beings, in the mind of beings, ignorance or avidya, moha, and craving, tanha, is always latent. We do not have tanha at this moment, but it is latent in our minds, and so when there is something desirable, we may have tanha for that thing. So there is always ignorance and craving latent in our minds. Now, if the karma is a kusala karma, how do you explain ignorance and craving? Enveloped by ignorance and rooted in latent craving. Actually, if it is kusala karma, it is not associated with ignorance and craving, right? It is not sampayutta with ignorance and craving. Although it is not associated with ignorance and craving, since ignorance and craving are latent, it is said to be enveloped by latent ignorance and rooted in latent craving. So here, with regard to kusala karma, their relationship is not association, not sampayutta, but decisive support, upanisaya. So by a kind of condition called decisive upanisaya, kusala karma is supported by ignorance and craving. So that means they do not arise at the same time, but because there is ignorance and craving, there is kusala karma. We do kusala because we have ignorance and we have craving. If we do not have ignorance and craving altogether, we do not acquire kusala, right? Like arahants. Arahants have eradicated all mental defilements, including ignorance and craving. And so whatever they do becomes just doing, just kiriya. So they do not acquire kusala. But we have craving and ignorance latent in our minds, and so not really understanding the true nature of things and being desirous of something, say we do kusala. We want to be reborn as a human being, we want to be reborn as celestial beings, and so we do kusala. So when we do kusala and we acquire kusala, that kusala is supported by ignorance and craving by way of decisive support. That means they do not arise together, but because there is ignorance and craving, there is kusala. If it is akusala karma, then we can get both kinds of support, decisive support as well as association support. Association condition, because when you do an akusala, then ignorance is there and craving is there. That means if it is lobha sahagata, right? If it is dosa sahagata, then ignorance is association as well as decisive support. But the craving is only decisive support and not association, because lobha does not arise with dosa mula citta. So we have to take it as is appropriate. That means if it is a kusala karma, then the ignorance and craving support that kusala karma by way of decisive support. And if it is akusala karma, they are conditioned for akusala karma both by way of association and by way of decisive support. So the karma which is enveloped by latent ignorance and rooted in latent craving generates or produces the patisanti citta. So patisanti citta is a product of karma in the past. And that rebirth linking consciousness, so called because it links together the two consecutive existences, is conjoined with its mental adjuncts. This is nothing new, right? Consciousness is always accompanied by cetasikas. So this consciousness is called relinking consciousness because it links together the two consecutive existences, the old existence and the new existence. So it is called linking, patisanti. And it is associated with mental factors and acts as the forerunner to the connascent states as their locus of foundation. That means, this is also not new. You know, mind is, consciousness is said to be the forerunner of other mental states. And forerunner does not mean that mind goes in front and these cetasikas follow it, but it is called a forerunner because it looks like a forerunner, because it is chief. The cetasikas can arise only when there is consciousness. So consciousness is like a foundation, a place for cetasikas to arise. Now, in the notes to guide to paragraph 37, the last cognitive process begins when the bhavanga is interrupted, vibrates for one moment, and is then arrested. Now he is describing the process. Thereafter follows either a sense door process taking an object, some sense object, presenting itself at one of the five sense doors, or a bare mind door process taking as object either some sense object or a mental object presenting itself at the mind door. Within this terminal process, the jhana phase, by reason of its weakness, runs for only 5 mind moments rather than the usual 7. We'll come to that later also. Now, this process lacks original productive karmic potency, but acts rather as the channel for the past karma that has assumed the rebirth generative function. Now it is important. Now you know the death thought process, and there are jhanas in death thought process. Now the question is, which produces patisanti citta? Karma or cetana at that death thought process, or karma in the past? Is it the past karma that produces patisanti, or karma at the moment of 5 jhana consciousnesses? Yeah? No, so here it is said, the process lacks original productive karma potency. So actually, we do not call the cetana associating the 5 thought movements karma, because they do not constitute karma, because it is too weak. to be productive of Patisandhi. So they lack the original productive karmic potency, but acts rather as the channel for the past karma that has assumed the rebirth generative function. So they are supporting karma. You know, there are a productive karma and supporting karma, right? And obstructive karma. So the karma in the past is productive karma, and the karma at the moment of death or at the moment of death javana process is supportive karma. So they act as just a channel for the past karma to give the result as patisandhi. Following the javana stage, 2 registration chetas, the dharamana may or may not follow. In some cases, the bhavanga may follow the last process chetas. Then, as the very last cheta, the death consciousness arises, performing the function of passing away from the present life. With the ceasing of the death consciousness, the life faculty is cut off. So, with the cessation of death consciousness, life faculty is also cut off. Then the body remains a mass of inanimate material phenomena born of temperature or utu, and continues as such until the corpse is reduced to dust. So it is how death occurs. Now, immediately after that death consciousness has ceased, now following the dissolution moment of the death consciousness, there arises in a new existence the rebirth linking consciousness, apprehending the object thus obtained in the final javana process of the previous life. Apprehending means just taking the same object as was taken by the javanas. This cheta is supported by the heart base in realms which include metta, but is baseless in the immaterial realms. It is generally generated by a volitional formation, that is the karma of the previous javana process. That means karma in the past, which in turn is grounded in the twin roots of the round of existence, that is latent ignorance and latent craving. So that karma is enveloped by latent ignorance, and that karma is rooted in craving. So we should understand that to mean the ignorance and karma serve as the decisive support and also as association support. The rebirth consciousness is conjoined with its mental adjuncts, that is, the cetasikas, which it serves as a forerunner, not in the sense that it precedes them, but in that it acts as their locus or foundation. So, the volitional formation. Now, there are 2 kinds of volitional formation here. Volitional, let us just call karma here. One that is done in the past, and the other that is at the moment of 5 javanas. Now, the one at the moment of 5 javanas, as we have learned, do not give result or do not generate patisandhi consciousness, but it is said to throw it down on the object. That means it makes the patisandhi cheta takes the object of the javanas of the previous thought process. So it helps the patisandhi cheta. It makes the patisandhi cheta to take the object taken by the jhanas as object. So it is not productive, but it is supportive. Okay, let us go to the thought process. Next section, next paragraph. Herein, in the death proximate cognitive process, only 5 feebly occurring jhanas should be expected. So there are only 5 jhanas in the death thought process. Now here, a person is very, very close to death, almost at death. So at that time, his body, his material properties are weak, and so his heart base is also weak, and so his mind is also weak, and so the jhanas do not arise 7 times as normal, but they arise only for 5 times. So only 5 feebly occurring jhanas should be expected. Therefore, when death takes place, while present objects are occurring, that means while present objects are existing and have entered the avenue of sense, then the rebirth, linking, and life continuum of the new existence also take a present object. In the case of a sense sphere rebirth linking, karma vajra patisandhi, when the object is a sign of karma or the sign of destiny perceived at any of the 6 doors, that object may be present or it may be past. So sign of karma may be present or may be past. Sign of destiny may be present or may be past. But karma as object is only past, because karma is a past karma. It is really past. And it is perceived only through mind door. Now, the sign of karma and sign of destiny may be of six kinds of objects, and so they may be presented through 6 doors. But karma is past only, and it is presented through mind door only. All these objects of sense sphere rebirth are limited phenomena only. That means karma vajra only. So whether it is karma or it is sign of karma or it is sign of destiny, it is karma vajra object. I hope you remember the objects divided into karma vajra object, mahagata object, and lokutra object, right? So karma vajra cheta, cetasika, and rupa are called karma vajra object. And rupa vajra and arupa vajra cetas are called mahagata object, and nibbana is called nibbana object. So the object of the karma vajra patisandhi is karma vajra object. Okay, now let us look at the chart. So this thought process is just one of many death and relinking thought processes. So please do not take it to be the only death thought process. And it is for a man who dies in a Kamavajra realm and who is reborn in Kamavajra realm. And in this example, the Gati Nibbida is taken as object. Kama Nibbida. Kama Nibbida is taken as object. So it can be Gati Nibbida or it can be Kama. But here, say Kama Nibbida is taken as object. So when death arises, so there is a death thought process, and it begins with, what is that? First, past bhavanga, because here the object is present object. So there is bhavanga, and then the past bhavanga, and then vibrating bhavanga, and then arrested bhavanga. And after that, what? Panchadwara Vajana. So the mind turning towards the object, and then Sampadechana, and then Santirana, and then Uttapana, determining, and then 5 jhanas. And after the 5th jhana, there is what? Chuti, death consciousness. That is the end of one life. So immediately after death arises relinking of Padisandhi consciousness. And after Padisandhi consciousness, there are 16 or 17 moments of bhavanga. And after the bhavanga, there is another thought process beginning with manodvara vajana, so mental thought process, manodvara vajana, and then 7 moments of jhana, and then bhavanga again. So this is a thought process of death and rebirth, or how death and rebirth occurs. Now, is that Padisandhi?
In the first life?
Yeah. So the Padisandhi, bhavanga, and then chuti of life 1 are identical, right? So if the object of Padisandhi is kama, then the object of bhavanga through life is kama, and object of death is also kama. Then if the object is kama nimitta, then all kama nimitta, and if it is gati nimitta, the object of the other consciousness, bhavanga and chuti, is also gati nimitta. But in the death thought process, beginning with what? Panchadwara vajana, right? Yes. Beginning with Panchadwara vajana, they take the present visible form as object here. And so jhanas also take the present visible object as object. So the 5 jhanas take the present visible object as object, right? Now when the Padisandhi consciousness arises, it takes the present visible object taken by the jhanas in the death thought process. Because, a present visible object must last for 17 thought moments, right? So we begin with bhavanga, atita bhavanga, right? So from atita bhavanga we go, and 17 thought moments are full at second bhavanga, right? At second bhavanga. So that means the present visible object exists until the second bhavanga. Now, the person has gone to a next life, but the object remains existing. So the Padisandhi consciousness of life number 2 takes the present visible object, which was taken by the jhanas. And at bhavanga 2, the present visible object disappears. So the other bhavangas take that object which has disappeared, or the past visible object. So the object of the death thought process and then Padisandhi and 2 bhavangas in the new life is the same, the present visible object. But the object of bhavanga 3, so on, until bhavanga 16 is the past visible object. And since the visible object is the object of Patisandhi, in life number 2, the Bhavangas and Chudis will also take that visible object as object. The difference is only present and past, but it is his visible object. Now, what is Patisandhi? What constitutes Patisandhi? Now, Patisandhi means Patisandhi consciousness, mental factors, and for a human being, 30 particles of matter. You will learn them in the 6th chapter. So at the moment of Patisandhi, 30 particles of matter along with the Patisandhi Chaita and Chaitasika arise. So when we say somebody takes Patisandhi or Patisandhi arises, we mean this. Patisandhi Chaita and the Chaitasikas going along with it, and the 30 particles of matter which are produced by karma. Now, matter, there are 4 causes of matter. So you will learn them in the 6th chapter. Karma, consciousness, weather or climate or temperature, and food. So they are the 4 causes of rupa, 4 causes of matter. So at the moment of Patisandhi, the material properties that arise are the result of karma. So what we call rebirth for human beings constitute Chaita, Chaitasika, and Rupa born of karma. These 3. Now, the first thought process in the new life, beginning with Manodvara Vajana, and then 7 javanas, and then Bhavanga again. Now, they take the new life as object. So the object of the first thought process in new life takes that new life, what we call Patisandhi, as object. And then Bhavanga and others take the Kama or Kama Nimitta or Gati Nimitta as usual. So, Kama Nimitta and Gati Nimitta in one life is different from those in another life. Although the name of the object is called Kama Nimitta and Gati Nimitta, they are different. They are different in their in their objects. They are different in their essence. For example, say the not in this diagram. Say the object of Patisandhi in life number 1 is akusala karma, but the object of Patisandhi number 2 can be kusala karma. Although they are karma, they are different. The same with the object of Patisandhi number 1 may be sign of karma, but the object of Patisandhi number 2 may be sign of karma, other sign of karma, or sign of destiny, or karma. So karma or Kama Nimitta or Gati Nimitta in one life is different from Kama or Kama Nimitta or Gati Nimitta of another life. So there is always difference in Kama Nimitta and Gati Nimitta in every life. If we can put some colors it will be better, easier to understand. I put the colors on my sheet and I left it at home. So, if you know the life number 1 and number 2, then you know life number 3, 4, 5, and so on. They go like this. So what is important in this thought process is Patisandhi is not the result of duty. That we must understand. Many people fall into this error and they think that Patisandhi is produced by duty. Actually, Patisandhi is produced by karma, right? Which karma? Karma in the past, not even karma at 5 jhana moments. It is produced by past karma. Past karma means it may be in the long past or it may be just close past. That means it may be karma acquired before that thought process. Before this process arises, there are other thought processes going on and on, like a stream of consciousness, right? So at those times, there is karma. So that karma is also past, not present. So Patisandhi is produced by past karma, not produced by chuti. But we can say that Patisandhi Chaita, Patisandhi consciousness is conditioned by chuti. And that condition is proximity. It is called proximity condition. In other words, giving place to. If that consciousness does not disappear, Patisandhi consciousness cannot arise. So that consciousness is a condition for Patisandhi consciousness to arise. So in that sense, Patisandhi consciousness is conditioned by that consciousness. But that is not caused by, but just giving place to. Now, in order for you to sit in this place, I will vacate this place, right? So I am a condition for you to be here, something like that. So that should be firmly borne in mind, because many people make this error of saying Patisandhi is conditioned by or caused by or by Chuti Cheta. So Chuti Cheta is a Vipaka Cheta, right? So as Vipaka Cheta, it cannot give result. It is the result of other karma, and so it has no power to give results. But it can be called a condition according to Patthana, because it arises and disappears before the Patisandhi Cheta arises. So there can be no identical karma or karma nimitta or gati nimitta for all lives or for all existences. So karma nimitta and gati nimitta in one life is different from karma and others another life. Now, I want you to turn to page 224, about the middle of the page. Let us just read in the paragraph beginning with, in the case of a sense sphere, rebirth, linking, etc. If the object of the rebirth consciousness is a karma, then it is necessarily past and must be a mental object apprehended at the mind door. It is presented through mind door. If the object is a sign of karma, then it can be apprehended at any of the 6 doors and may be either past or present. Until this, it is okay. In the case of the sign of destiny as object, gati nimitta, different teachers advance conflicting interpretations. Some commentators, including the author of the Vibhavanitika, holds that the sign of destiny is necessarily a present visible form, visible object, apprehended at the mind door. So according to that tika, the sign of destiny is a present visible object, and it is taken through mind door, not through eye door. So you do not see the sign with your eyes, you see the sign with your mind. They interpret Acharya Anuruddha's statement, that means the statement of the manual in the text as meaning, when the object is a sign of karma, it may be perceived at any of the 6 doors and may be present or past. When it is a sign of destiny, it is perceived at the 6th door, that is the mind door, and is present. Now, in the original Pali, cha dwara gahidan, the word cha dwara gahidan is used. So this word can be literally, this word means apprehended by or taken by 6 doors, but it can be interpreted to mean by the 6th door also. So the Vibhavanitika takes it to mean 6th door. So according to Vibhavanitika, the Gati Nimitta is always present visible object presented through mind door. Other commentators, including Lady Seattle, reject this interpretation as forced and too narrow. They argue that Acharya Anuruddha must be taken at his word, as holding the wider view that the sign of destiny can be past or present and may appear at any of the 6 doors. So according to these teachers, Gati Nimitta is the same as Kama Nimitta. It can be of six kinds of objects, and it can come through 6 sense doors. Lady Sarah asserts that when the Abhidhamma text commonly speak of the sign of destiny as a present visible object appearing at the mind door, this is said by way of its usual manifestation, but does not mean that it does not become manifest in other ways, for example, as the groans of those in hell, or as celestial music or fragrance, etc. So Gati Nimitta may be not visible object only, it can be audible object, or it can be smell, and so on. Now, there is a story of Dhammika Upasaka in Dhammavada. So when he was about to die, then the sign of destiny appeared to him. And that sign of destiny was the chariots from six Deva Lokas, asking them to get into their respective chariots. Say, please step into our chariot, we will take us to our realm, like that. So he saw those signs. And he also hears, because those devas are inviting him to step into their own chariots. So their Gati Nimitta is not only visible object, an audible object is also Gati Nimitta. And he may have smell of celestial flowers and so on. I don't know that. So the other commentators, including Lady Sarah, take that Gati Nimitta can be not only visible objects, but also object, and it is presented through any of the 6 sense doors. Okay. In Abhidhamma, or in the teachings of the Buddha, There is no transferring of anything from one life to another life. Now, the Bodhisattva arises, right? And that arises as a result of the karma in the past. And it is not something carried over to the next life. This is what Abhidhamma teaches. So there are similes to explain this, right? The simile of an echo, the simile of a lamp, and the simile of a seal. That means Bodhisattva arises not without cause. But Bodhisattva is not the cause. It is the result of the cause. So when you shout into a cave, then the echo comes back. The echo is not your voice, but without your voice there can be no echo. So in the same way, Bodhisattva is not, it does not belong to the past life, but it comes into being because of something in the past. So it comes into being out of nothing. Now it does not come into being out of nothing. And the same as the oil lamp. So you light your lamp from another lamp. So the flame you get is not the same flame as the other one, but that flame comes into being not without the flame in the old lamp. And also the seal. So when you put the seal on the paper, then there is an impression of seal there. So that impression is not the seal, not the seal transferred to the paper. But without that seal, there can be no impression. So in the same way, what arises in the new life is not totally disconnected with something in the past life. But not any one of the past life is carried over to next life. So that is how we explain this. So whatever arises at the moment of Patisandhi is, according to this teaching, the result of the karma in the past. Not something taken over to a new life. But there is a kind of continuity going on, and so in conventional terms we say a person is reborn. Even we say the bodhisattva is reborn as a king, a bodhisattva is reborn as an animal, and so on. But actually, there is no bodhisattva reborn as a human being or as a deva or as an animal, because nothing from the past life is taken over to the next life. But something in the past life causes something in the new life to arise. And since it is the result of the cause, it may possess some qualities of the cause. Not that the qualities are taken over, transferred to the next life, but the result themselves, like say when you grow a mango tree, then you get the mango fruit. So in the same way, the result in the next life is similar to the cause in the past life. So this is how we should understand this life and next life. Okay. Now you may have many questions.
Can you clarify what not carrying over in Buddhism?
Yeah. As I said before, say the qualities of the cause are produced in the effect. Not that the qualities are transferred, but they are produced something produced by a mango seed and something produced by what seed? Another seed. It's different, right? Something produced by mango seed is a mango fruit, but something produced by a plum is a plum fruit, and so on. So we say we accumulate paramis, right? So these paramis do not move to another life actually, but as a result of the paramis are karma, right? Actually, right? So as a result of that karma, there arises a result in the future, and that result possesses the qualities of the past karma. And so it is like the potential is carried over to, but actually it is not carried over, but one cause producing the effect, and another cause also producing another effect, and so on.
During your lecture tonight, you referred to craving and
Ignorance.
I can understand how craving can be latent. I might like chocolate, but if I don't see it, I won't think of it. If I see the chocolate, then I'll want to eat the chocolate. But the idea of latent ignorance is harder for me to grasp. Desire has a positive aspect, but ignorance means the lack of understanding. It's hard to understand how you can have a latent, negatively operating.
Ignorance means not just absence of knowledge. It is understanding wrongly. So it has the characteristic of covering up the true nature. Because this covering up of true nature is with us, we fail to see the true nature of things. And so it is said to be with us, I mean, not all the time, but it is said to be with us always. Always means it is like a background or underlying phenomenon, underlying Dhamma.
So, as my seeing chocolate creates the desire for it, what it takes the latent craving, latent tanha, and turns it into actual craving, what sparks latent ignorance to become actual ignorance?
The tendency to not understand the true nature of things is latent. It is called latent ignorance. And real not understanding the true nature is, what do you call that? Pariyutthana, right? Existing or present. Now there are two, you know there are three layers of all mental defilements. Latent, and then coming up, let us say coming up, and then transgression. Transgression means you act upon it. For example, you have the latency of dosa, I mean anger. You can get angry when there is provocation, But at this moment you have no anger. So anger is latent in you. But when you become angry, then angry comes to the surface. So that is called pariyutthana, surfacing. And depending on anger, you may act. You may hit a person or you may kill a person through anger. And so that hitting or killing is called transgression stage. So there are 3 stages. When you are doing something some meritorious deed, there is no ignorance, no not understanding in your mind. But since it is latent, it is very deep in your mind, you have the tendency to not understand things. So when you really don't understand and understand it wrongly, it becomes moha, ignorance, surfacing. It is still difficult, right?
Well, I can see my question is more about the nature of ignorance than the nature of latency.
When there is craving, there is ignorance.
Yeah, craving is always accompanied by ignorance. You know, ignorance accompanied all 12 akusala chetas. Because we do not understand the real nature of things, we are attached to these things. We want these things. If we really understand the true nature of things, that they are impermanent and so on, we will have no craving. So, when we have liable to be to crave things, so it is in the stage of latency, and then when we really are attached to things, then it becomes surfacing. It is called kilesa at that time. And when it is latent, it is called anusaya. And the anusaya of ignorance is always with us, means we always have this tendency to not understand the true nature of things. And that is why we have to practice meditation and try to dispel or avoid this not understanding. So when we do not understand something, or we understand it as permanent and so on, then it becomes the real ignorance. So it is always with us until we become arahants.
So when I do a meritorious deed with the goal to be reborn in a celestial being, because my understanding that does that combine, I think that is craving for a better. Does that show the ignorance in that? Because if I understand correctly, I could realize that even the highest celestial realms would have an ending from that existence, that somehow the ignorance factor is present in my action of doing it.
Action of doing what?
Meritorious.
Oh, it is not present. Because as you know, ignorance and merit cannot arise together simultaneously. But it acts like the decisive support. It is something like a basis on which we live. So long as we have the tendency to be ignorant of the true nature of things. So at the moment of doing meritorious deed, you have no avijja arising in your mind as sampayutta. But as an anusaya, it's always there. That means you have the tendency to be ignorant. Although at this particular moment you are not ignorant. At this particular moment, ignorance is not in your mind. It has not come up. But still it has the tendency to come up when there are conditions for it. So that's why I explained to you when we talk about the volitional formation. Volitional formation can be kusala or akusala, right? If it is kusala, then it is not associated with, or it does not arise simultaneously with ignorance and craving. Right? If it is kusala, then ignorance and craving do not arise with it. But still it is called enveloped by ignorance and rooted in craving. Because there it is by way of decisive support condition, not by way of association condition. But when it is an akusala karma, then ignorance and craving can arise simultaneously with, say, lobha mula akusala. And they can also be decisive support. So, when you are doing merit, at that very moment, there is no akusala factors in your mind, no lobha, no dosa, no moha in your mind. Although you have the tendency to have these when conditions for them are met with. In other words, because we are ignorant, we do kusala. Because we are ignorant of true nature of things, say we do kusala. And because we are ignorant of, say, the painful consequences of akusala, we do akusala. Or because we want to be reborn in a celestial world, but we get wrong instructions, and so we sacrifice an animal with the belief that we will be reborn in a celestial world. And so, through ignorance, we do akusala there. So when we do akusala, there is ignorance in our mind. So you have to understand this with reference to patthana. So there are 24 modes of relationship in patthana, and here we are concerned with the decisive support condition and association condition. Association or co-nascent condition, that means arising together. So some are conditioned when they arise together, and some are conditions but they do not arise together. One is a condition for another. They belong to different times, at different places.
In the human realm, we have the body and we have the mind. And so the mind and thought process is just a series of changes. What form does karma